at a time when I feel sometimes we forget what it is to be Singaporean. I think his music brings people together. It really unites us.
His music spoke for him, and his music still speaks for him today.
Was very mesmerized with the lights of Singapore, and that began his adventure that the Dutchman asked him to follow.
Pak Zubir grew up in Bukit Tinggi in West Sumatra, which was colonized by the Dutch at that time. But when he went to primary school, he had a Dutch music teacher who taught him how to read music, solfege, do re mi.
He and his friends would make their own flutes from bamboo. On moonlight nights, they would roam around the village to entertain the adults. But then the adults did not quite appreciate them because they were making a lot of noise, I think.
He was very talented, so he picked up the flute, the guitar, percussion. The violin was his favorite instrument.
He was very passionate about music even from an early age.
When he was a child, he fell in love with music. When he was a teenager, he joined keroncong bands.
At the age of 19, Zubir became the leader of a travelling keroncong band, bringing music to villagers across Sumatra at various events. Though Zubir was finally pursuing his passions, not all agreed with his decisions.
Datuk Said believed music was haram, and he always made known that he wanted Pak Zubir to serve in the Dutch army. And he even smashed his guitars and all that.
But my father, despite father's beliefs in that music was haram, he still pursued the music.
The turning point came when Pak Zubir was 21 years old and he fell really ill and was hospitalized for 1.5 months.
His father traveled to Pekanbaru. He brought with him a cloth, white cloth, and he went to the doctor and said, "This is for my son. If he doesn't survive, this is for his funeral."
But miraculously, he recovered. And so when he recovered, he felt life was too short. He had to pursue his passion, and he defied his father and left home.
Did your father have any idea where you were?
So after he sent me a letter through somebody, so I wonder how the letter came to me. Maybe it is brought by a sailor or any trader from my place and dropped the letter at my place. And then I replied the letter that I'm safe, I'm in Singapore, you don't worry about me. And then from that time, for a long time, there was no communication.
And when he arrived at Singapore, he was so amazed by the lights that he saw from a distance. And then, of course, he had music all the time in his mind.
Within 2 days of arriving in Singapore, he got a job as a violinist with the City Opera, the Bangsawan Theatre Troupe. And from a violinist, he rose through the ranks to becoming the arranger, the conductor, the music director.
And that sort of encouraged him to pursue further the music career.
When he joined the City Opera, he took it upon himself to learn how to play the piano and how to read Western music notation. So it was really through his own industriousness that he rose through the ranks. He was able to draw on his experience with keroncong music and Bangsawan music to write songs for these singers.
When World War II began in 1941, Zubir returned to Bukit Tinggi with his family. He returned to Singapore in 1947 and worked as a photographer. It was only 2 years later that he returned to his music profession.
He joined Shaw Brothers Malay Film Productions, MFP. One of their first films was 1948, Cinta, and he wrote the songs and the film score.
Now, his first love was to create mood music because he felt that that was his forte. Mood music, that means in a story, in a film, if the mood was a love story, then the song would sound like a love song. If it's a war, battle song, then he would play music that depict the essence of the mood of the music.
Zubir identified a gap in the film industry. At the time, music for films was typically recorded either before the filming or during the shoots. Recognizing that music was a vital element of storytelling, he became the first musician in Singapore to create original background scores for films.
You know, writing music is a very difficult kind of thing because it's very hard to earn a lot of money. When in the case of Park Zubir, he managed to become Singapore's first film music composer. I think Zubir Said was just a born musician.
You can tell how versatile he was. For example, in Cinta, if you had just replaced the Malay lyrics with English words, it would sound like a Broadway score. He wasn't satisfied with that, so he also wanted to honor his traditions as a Malay composer. So he went over to Cathay Chris to score the more traditional films.
Zubir's contribution to the film industry established him as a pivotal figure in the golden age of Malay cinema. His greatest legacy, however, would come from a song he composed in 1958.
You know, the Victoria Theatre was being renovated and they were going to have a big concert for the reopening. The City Council wrote to Zubir Said, the letters exist, we can see the correspondence. It appears that he wrote the song Majulah Singapura very quickly, within a week or two. He had sent the song back to the City Council. At that point of time, people didn't know it was going to become the national anthem.
And from there, because government liked the song so much, he was invited to compose for national anthem, which of course he was very proud to accept.
And eventually it became Singapore's national anthem in 1959.
I think his exceptional gift was being able to write lyrics that were so simple but yet profound. The national anthem is really very few words. The way he picked those words and made it accessible to everyone. That is not a gift that every songwriter has.
When the PAP government decided to adopt Majulah Singapura national anthem, Dr. Toh Chin Chai, who was in charge of this, requested Zubir Said to shorten the verse. Zubir Said was told to shorten, so he went back to shorten it. But before he could complete his work, someone else had shortened it for him without asking his permission. And worse still, that version was going to be adopted as a national anthem by an act of parliament. And someone alerted Zubir to it. He got hold of it and said, "This is not my version." So the passing of the bill in Parliament was cancelled.
If it had been your composition, would you like people to meddle with your composition without your permission? It's impolite, it's disrespectful, unless you have something very seriously wrong with the composition.
So later on, several months later, when he had completed his version, it was passed by Parliament and adopted as a national anthem.
Now, when I was in primary school, I never knew that Zubir Said was not Singaporean. So to find out that our anthem was written by an immigrant was quite profound. It didn't matter to him that he was from Bukit Tinggi. He said, "This is where I have arrived. This is the place I will honor."
In 1959, Majulah Singapura was selected as the nation's national anthem when it gained self-government. When Singapore gained independence in 1965, the song was adopted as the country's national anthem.
So when Prince Philip came, that particular occasion on the Padang was the occasion where most Singaporeans heard it, and the reaction was very, very positive, actually.
My mother was sent to Indonesia to fetch my grandfather to attend that inaugural song. And then of course, the first time they were reunited.
I asked my father, what do you think now? He said, "You are right." He said, "I was wrong. I was too orthodox at that time."
He said you were proven right in pursuing a musical career.
Yeah. So he said, now he is starting to love music. After that, he embraced me. And of course, I am glad and sad also. So I got tears in my eyes, but I thank God it is all over now.
Zubir had a list of songs which he labelled Songs of Patriotism, songs that would go on to be performed at the Victoria Memorial Hall, one being Semoga Bahagia, our beloved Children's Day song. Though highly respected as a musician by then, there were few who tried to alter and call for changes to his compositions.
A government organization had changed the structure of Semoga Bahagia without telling him and released it, and he was very angry.
If you're a musician and someone is fooling around with your music and not doing it properly, of course you will be very upset.
Because he respected his music so much, he expected the same from his collaborators. He would always say, don't change the melody I wrote. Don't make it flowery because you would weaken my intention.
In 1986, there were calls for the nation to adopt a new national anthem.
Pak Zubir saw it as a slap in his face.
There were calls to allow people to sing it in different languages. And the government has never deviated from the fact that the anthem should be in Malay. Malay has a special place in society as the national language.
After 32 years, they said that the words in Malay were kind of difficult to understand. That seemed ridiculous. He went verbatim to explain the words, and schools should teach the meaning of the words.
In 1991, the debate was resurfaced, and this time the ministers had to intervene. Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong and Senior Minister Lee Kuan Yew insisted that we will not change the national anthem because the fact that it is in Malay represents our history. It is symbolic of who we are.
Zubir eventually retired from Cathay Caris in 1964. He went on to share his love for music by giving lessons to the young.
Pak Zubir was Iskandar's first music teacher, his piano teacher when he was 8 years old, because Iskandar's mother was the late Nona Asia. Nona Asia was Pak Zubir's muse. He wrote so many songs for her. Because Iskandar is so talented and he could play everything by ear, he needed a very strict teacher. Pak Zubir forced him to sit down and actually read music scores, and he was very strict. Iskandar told me that he really dreaded it. He dreaded learning music that way, but then in the end he realized that it was important for him to learn it properly and read music. So he was always grateful for that foundation that Pak Zubir gave him.
He started to teach me how to play the piano, but I was a dropout because he was so strict. First thing he asked me, press the octave. I didn't even know what octave was. So I was really put off because he was so strict.
Times when I've sort of seen him, Pak Zubir was a very unassuming person in spite of the fact that he was a very accomplished musician. He was a man of a great talent.
He was always having a pencil down his ear. You know, even at bedtime, sometimes when he suddenly gets an inspiration of a theme, of lyrics or of tunes, he would quickly jot it down.
I really didn't know much about him until 2018 when Beatrice Chia Richmond approached me to create something for Light to Night Festival. She said, because Iskandar was your teacher and Zubir Said was Iskandar's teacher, I just have a feeling you might be the right person to do this. At that time, Iskandar had passed away for 5 years, and I just saw it as an opportunity to honor him. I created Don't Call Him Mr. Marikita with Wild Rice. I took that quote from a speech that he gave where he told the audience, a lot of you call me Mr. Marikita. Please don't call me Mr. Marikita. It is wrong. My name is Zubir Said. And the song that I composed is called Majulah Singapura, not Marikita. It is a celebration of Pak Zubir's life and legacy. I think there are many ways to love our country, but it is also, to me, a Singapore story that has to be told.
Zubir passed away in 1987 at the age of 80 after battling liver failure. His contributions to our nation remain a vital part of our national identity, still being sung by thousands of Singaporeans every day. Even with an extensive catalogue with over 1,500 songs, the search is still on to find all of Zubir's compositions, with some lost to time.
The music was his prayer. He said, Majulah Singapura quotation is by prayer for the advancement of Singapore by the young people, for the young people.
I think through many of his songs, Pak Zubir asks us, what does it mean to be orang Singapura?
That is a story of Singapore, a nation of immigrants coming in and building up the country, each with his own individual talents. And Pak Zubir is a supreme example of that.
Throughout the lyrics of the anthem, you don't find anything about a king or queen or sultan, and also not about a president or a prime minister, because it is an anthem of the people and the state of Singapore. Singapore is a new country with a population of different racial origins. The people must be together with solidarity to be able to create a prosperous Singapore.
Aku ada